Hello and welcome to Culture Shock. I am your host, Ricardo Picena, aka the Meditating Cowboy, and this is our third podcast, and I'm excited. Our mission for our podcast is to empower one another by sharing information, sharing our experiences, our belief systems. We don't necessarily have to believe what we share, but it's good to have an open mind. In my opinion, it's good to have an open mind so you can always grow. I feel like everybody has their own truth, and at least people who have been engaging with me so far, everybody seems to have their own truth, and I love it. I love this. This is my third one, and I'm already getting the engagement I love. So I appreciate that. So today's podcast is going to be on unconditional love. There's no actual definition for unconditional love. But I'm going to give my perspective on it and my ideas on why I think it's a good practice. Overall, it's a practice. And Wikipedia description of unconditional love is known as affection without any limitations or to love without conditions. It's also known as altruism or true altruism or complete love. So I do have some art that I made. I named it Unconditional Complete Love. It was like a download. I just wanted to name it that. I'll eventually be able to post some of my art on the meditatingcowboy.com. But what I think unconditional love is the practice of accepting and understanding people and letting them be themselves. Of course, some I don't even know what to call it. Some exceptions apply, I guess. If you don't want to let people harm other people. Obviously, I can feel the fact that somebody will run with that and be like, well, what about the people that are harming people? No, we're not talking about those humans. I think this life has rewards and consequences to our actions, and of course some of them are not rationalized right, and we punish people for wrong reasons. But overall, unconditional love is the acceptance and understanding and letting people be who they want to be while not letting it change who you are, at least in a negative way. If it's changing who you are in a positive way, I think that's a good thing. Overall, the reason I think that's a good thing, overall, we're all going to die. So I feel like if we already know the outcome, why not live your life happy? Of course, this whole podcast is to empower one another so you can reach happiness. I don't want anybody to try to take information on self-empowerment and use it against others. That's the reason why humanity is where we are, because these power minds have been using their minds to manipulate our reality, unfortunately. And they are definitely not practicing unconditional love. You can't really practice unconditional love with those type of people. You know what I mean? They're not really looking out for the best of humanity. Unconditional love will be, I guess, your mom and dad, if you have a good relationship with them. At least for me, I experience unconditional love with my mom and dad, even though we have arguments and we don't have the same points of views. I'm sure there's limits, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like I would run with, like, okay, if they unconditionally love me, then they wouldn't mind me robbing their bank or something like that, something ignorant. And that's not unconditional love. That's definitely not unconditional love on the other persons if they're trying to steal from other people. I don't understand why they would want to do that if they're trying to embrace love. But it's more of unconditional love is more of an ideology than actual, like, any science behind it. But there is science in the fact that our thoughts do change our reality. Our subjective point of view change our objective point of view. Not in the sense that you can make things bend back, break a pen with your mind, at least not that I've seen, but for sure in the sense of how you see yourself, how you take information or how you take criticism, all that matters. That's your thoughts will alter. If you're taking criticism bad, you're going to get stressed. You're creating like a resistance inside your body, which becomes a disease. There is science in that, which I guess I should have looked up some of the examples. But if we want to practice unconditional love, I feel like we'll be able to minimize suffering. That's one of the reasons why I try to practice that as much as possible. In the end, it's kind of like a selfish reason why I practice unconditional love. I'm tired of suffering. I'm tired of reacting so reactively towards petty little small things. So that's one of the reasons why I love to practice unconditional love. So in a sense, I guess it can be a selfless act. So I'm not proud of it. I think it's a good thing. I think if we all practice that more, it would be a better world for everybody. But again, it starts with us. We should practice unconditional love every day, as much as possible. And I do fail at it at times. Let me give you an example. When I dated this girl, I'm not gonna say her name because I'm pretty sure y'all know her. But I dated this girl. I try to practice unconditional love. I'm like, okay, if I'm really about this shit, let's do it. You know what I mean? Let me practice. And so we were having some issues in our relationship, like any other couple. And I figured if I give her the freedom to be who she wants to be while still being together, that's to me ultimately is being unconditionally loving. Let her do what she wants to do, regardless of my selfish points of view on how she should act, So I try practicing that. So we go to this party, and my friends are there. I say hi. We're all greeting each other, and we arrived together, but they didn't know we had a deal where she's gonna be who she wants to be, regardless of what I think. Basically, if she wants to act single, she can act single. And well, it turns out she did do that. But since we had came to an agreement and I was practicing unconditional love, that experience, it was a very weird because there was resistance and then like kind of letting go, both at the same time. But I was just sitting there and taking that experience, and it was such a unique feeling to be able to just do that. A lot of people say they can, but when you really have done it, it's a really unique experience. It did hurt, but what I thought will be not nearly the death of me, something that will really hurt, but to be able to sit there and take it, watch as she flirts with some other guy, yeah, that it hurt. But the experience to be able to sit there and keep my word and understand what truly unconditional love is, that feeling, that's what I wanted to feel proud of at the moment. But it was a resistance, like I didn't want to. I was like, what the fuck they doing? I was pissed off. But then I was like, wait. Then I came back, and then that feeling of letting go felt great. But at the same time, then I came back, I was like, but this is my gal, you know what I mean? So, which leads to another topic of how language shapes perception, which will be for another podcast. If y'all want to do some research on how language shapes perception, that'd be cool. I already done some, but I'm going to do some more so I can present it a little bit better, my point of view. So ultimately, all my podcasts are going to be the foundation of what I use to, like, as my morals. And I try to, like, from my beginning of the podcast, I try to watch my self-image, make sure I am empowering people, not just maybe being condescending if I am at sometimes, but also letting them know that I'm actually here to help. But yeah, that's where I fell at times. And also, well, I'm a human being, you know what I mean? We all make mistakes. That's not an excuse. I'm just saying. And and all this does tie to how we see ourselves. You can't practice anything that you don't see yourself doing. It's just that's just the logic and the science behind how we humans function individually, actually, at a personal level. So I do add daily routines like meditation and yoga or certain disciplines that allow me to regain perspective and let me know that we're all the same. We're on our own path. We're on our own truth. And for me, it's my job, if somebody comes into contact with me or to interaction, it is my job to make sure to understand this individual by actually trying to understand them and empower them and not belittle them. So unless I'm trying to prove it's that point, which is never that point. And if it is that point, I make sure I let them know. So I feel like for me, if I can get that information presented to me, because I'm treating others like I want to be treated, and that would be great. So, yeah. How do you practice unconditional love? So that's the question, empowering question of the day. You can write in your answers. So last podcast, I asked the empowering question of the day if you could add or remove or balance out anything or any of the world, anything in the world, what would it be? And Heather answers, I will remove deception. This would cause hate to decrease while increasing love and truth. This is a huge foundation of many sensitive subjects. And she goes to give a few subjects, like abortion. She says that many mothers are deceived in believing that their baby does not feel pain at the time of abortion takes place, which that's a different subject. I'm sure people have different points of views on that. And racism. She says many are deceived, and therefore some believe that only certain races do certain things, when in fact what she goes to say is we're all victims of human nature. She don't really say that, but basically what it comes down is there's not just one race that falls victim of certain tendencies. We can fall under that as well, especially if we're raised around that environment. And for me, back to the empowering question of the day for today, which is how do you practice unconditional love? For me, it starts with accepting what I can't change while applying actions to what I can change, which that also manifests to how do I take care of my body myself, which means for me would be, eating, drinking right, sleeping right, making sure I apply the right disciplines for my goals. So the lifestyle that I eventually live, or that I do live, I have to do that in order for me to feel fulfilled and or happy. So it's, for me, I feel that's great. I'm no longer having to chase materialistic stuff to fill a void. Though there's always going to be a void, I feel like. I don't know. Maybe I haven't found true unconditional love. I don't know. But I feel like there's always going to be some form of resistance, because you can't have one without the other. And so therefore this information is practical, and the practices that I do for me is for me to regain perspective on what it is to be human, and ultimately how to manifest all this information that we share, or the fact that we even can share information or communicate. I don't know. It can go as deep as you want it to go, honestly. And I suggest you practice whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so let me see. I still have some time. It's been a very short podcast. What else can I say? Let me share something else about myself. Something not so good. How about that? Where I have failed completely. Let's just leave it at business. So when I was working for the family business, I was running our first business in Kaufman as the full-time, owner of the business. And one of the employees didn't like that from the beginning. And I can understand some people don't like change. And I sensed that then. But at that moment, I thought I was like, okay, I'm aware of the stuff that I say will harm others, and I'm sure I can keep things under control. So I thought I was woke, quotations, and I thought I handled everything right. I gave her a raise. I gave everybody a raise. I bought new machinery to make everything simple. I bought just new equipment all around to make everything simple. And things will be right maybe for a day or two, and then one of the employee that she had an issue, she would throw a fit or complain about something, and at some point I just had enough, and I pretty much had to fire her. And I think the way I fired her was not right, because she had been working for us for a long time, like 5 years, but she was being the issue of the whole team not performing at their highest peak. And at that time I was like, okay, I have the right as a boss, but also I wanted to maintain a professional human being and not just be a cutthroat boss. So I tried to give her an option. She didn't want to take it, so I ended up firing her. And it just, I think that's where I fucked up. You know what I mean? Especially as a boss. That's one of, like, maybe if it was something personal outside of business, it would have maybe not affected me as much, because I understand it's human. And I also understand it's part of being human why I fucked up and fired her the way I did. But also I feel like it's important to treat people like people regardless of your position in life. And I wasn't aware of that much, I guess, then. So I have seen some growth, and I'm sure there's other shit I fuck up now, but I intentionally try to do my best, and intentionally try to remove people that I know will cause drama. That way I can manifest these goals better and be able to share ideas. So yeah, I like doing that a lot. So yeah, the gift of the day is still Meditating Cowboy stickers. If y'all would like any, just email me at themeditatingcowboy@gmail.com. You could also visit themeditatingcowboy.com. I have books that I suggest that I have read and I put into practice. I embodied that information, and that's what I feel helps me on becoming, like, when I was the CEO of Little Mexico, I was a pretty good one. I could handle things better because of the information I got from those books. And it's always good to take other people's experience into consideration, because these people are actually human beings who have manifested the information they're sharing. At least they should. They should be. You know what I mean? The outro. So I want to make sure I leave y'all with a like good vibes, a practical way to practice good vibes. And a positive impact starts when each individual is intentionally putting their fair share of love. And of course, love is subjective. It's up to you to decide what love is. I always think ultimately is treat others how you want to be treated. And I also want to remind people that things don't change until we do. We can see all these negative things outside of us, how the world's gone to shit to some people is what they say. But regardless of that, reality is nothing will change until we do, until we actually make the effort to bring change into the world. And of course, I want to remind you too that we are unconditionally loved, very much so that we are allowed to believe that we're not. And what I think that means ultimately is that we're allowed to feel and think what we want and create our own heaven or hell here on earth through our thoughts and ultimately through our actions, because our actions speak louder than our words. So I want to remind everybody that, and thank y'all for tuning in to the third podcast. So the next podcast number 4, is going to be on respect. So stay tuned for the next one next Wednesday.